Hello and welcome to another jungle video. I'm Virkayu and I will be presenting to you the current and future top junglers as of patch 8.8. I will also make sure to mention any possible changes upcoming in patch 8.9, such as the Warwick nerfs. And as before with this video, it is not a cut and dry tier list, it is merely a compilation of the best performing junglers for you to succeed in solo queue, as well as some others that are worth discussing. If you are a one trick or you win a lot with something I don't mention, keep on going. But if you're hard stuck and not having the best time with the champion you're playing, maybe consider switching it up to one of these choices and seeing what works for you. In this video I will show a mark whether a champion is easy, medium, or hard difficulty, so take that into consideration when learning them. The first group are probably the stronger meta champions at the moment, so of course we have to start with Warwick. Strong early damage and self-healing through his Q, fast movement speed all over the map with his W passive, as well as a suppression ultimate, mean that most people have simply started to ban Warwick. And while he does have weaknesses in the late game, usually this requires a team to be more coordinated. So while there are of course Master, Challenger, and High Diamond players having success with Warwick at the moment, his effectiveness is definitely strongest in Plat and below. Being really tanky along with the sustain and damage output, as well with the changes to press the attack and team out over the past 4-5 months, means his win rate has stayed high and even increased a bit. Currently on the PBE he has quite heavy nerfs to his Q damage, with the healing staying the same, but pay attention to the patch notes in 8.9 to see exactly how those numbers change, but he will surely come down a bit in win rate if that goes through, and tame his beast solo queue strength. Everyone's favorite assassin and tilt-inducing jungler as well is Kha'Zix. Cross-map invis without being detected? Oh yeah, we like that. Strong 1v1 dueling thanks to his isolation damage bonus. Strong mid-game while being slippery and almost unkillable when fed against an uncoordinated team means this champ is very heavily banned even at the top of the ladder. His skill ceiling is high though, and as always his team fighting and late game execution require more advanced game and champion knowledge, so I will continue to recommend him for the higher tiers, but his overall solo queue strength and dominance cannot be denied. Jax has fallen off some people's radar and is rated lower than he once was thanks to a slight decrease in his win rate, but don't be mistaken. If you're looking for another hybrid damage, tanky fighter like Warwick, Jax is a strong option for you. He has early pressure and can really spike up your objective focus with how fast he can take towers as well as monsters. Electric Q can work, Conqueror is strong but much better on top lane, so press the attack is still the best choice, as well as enabling your team's damage during those ganks. It synergizes nicely with this kit the way the damage stacks up also. Make sure to pressure lanes and objectives with Jax once your farming speed ramps up, and you'll find yourself snowballing quite hard. He's one of those choices that are great and work very well from low to high MMRs. A champion that I don't see very often anymore but that can still snowball the game pretty hard is Nunu. To paraphrase the odd one, your job is to make the enemy jungler as useless as you. Except now, Nunu can make you useless but be way more important in teamfights than you can be. Especially if your team has something like Varus who really synergizes nicely with your W buff. Counter jungling, dragon pressure, and zoning ultimates are the order of the day, and he can work in every rank due to his simple nature, but I would perhaps recommend him more in that silver area if you have a carry duo that you can work with specifically. Otherwise there are better fighter type champions that can really affect that sort of MMR a bit more. Now a lot of tier lists and people are speaking about removing Skarner, putting him further down, thanks to nerfs to him, Aftershock, as well as Spellbook. But he just takes Predator and the same effect is there. An underestimated dueling potential, as well as a lockdown ult along with massive map power spike areas, means that he's excellent at high level play and especially in silver and gold as well, because you can very easily ult and remove the enemy carry where they are unlikely to dynamically itemize with things like QSS or Mikhails. Get your Skarner while he's still underrated, or not so much underrated as a little bit forgotten. He's still quite common when you watch high-elo Twitch streams, but his overall play rate has gone down quite significantly since the OP Spellbook and Aftershock days. Finally, to round out this top tier of meta champions, we have the annoying Shaco. What makes him very difficult to deal with is that if your team is uncoordinated, doesn't ward, over pushes, and he gets a little bit fed in the beginning, he can become very oppressive against the enemy jungler. And then a lot of times it's very difficult to fight him because if you don't have the right champion, he can be quite difficult to straight up duel. And from there it's a system of mind games about what farm you can get, where you can put pink wards, where exactly he could be ganking next. So a well-coordinated team is very good against Shaco, and if he doesn't get fed, you can definitely shut him down. But at the moment his strength is quite high, although he is a difficult champion to master and definitely more successful in the higher MMRs, and it's mostly because there's a lot of one-tricks really dominating his power state at the moment. Next up is the first AP assassin, AP jungler at all, in our list, and there won't be that many of them because they are in general not in a very good state. Evelynn actually provides better than expected early pressure with her CC, even though it's a bit telegraphed, but later on that CC combined with her pressure through her camouflage is definitely something that cannot be replicated by many other junglers. Just be wary of weaker matchups, of deep vision by the enemy, and make sure you're using the right positioning in teamfights to get off as much damage as you possibly can, or at least eliminating a priority target. Alright, making his way back into the top junglers list is Rengar, although with a much higher skill gap than he used to have, and definitely way more successful in higher elos than he is in lower elos. He has almost incomparable snowball potential with his passive bone tooth stacking, as well as the fact that his ultimate does insane amounts of damage if you are even remotely ahead, with how you can leap out of camo and just annihilate people by spamming buttons. You definitely need to be aware of matchups, as well as very strong early game pathing, as well as farming efficiently so you can stack the Dark Harvest, which actually has a better success rate than the Electrocute, even if Electrocute is still more common. Another jungler with a decent skill cap that takes a bit of time to get used to and learn and maximize is Kindred. They are way better than people are saying and than people think at the moment. I'm actually going to them as sort of a default in certain matchups, not against Kha'Zix, because you should always ban Kha'Zix if you're playing Kindred, but by understanding the mark progression system and where they're going to spawn next, as well as using very good counter jungling and intelligent pathing again, it can definitely be something that scales super nicely for you, and most junglers will have unmatched late game Kindred damage. And in this beautiful ADC meta we are in, why not have the ability to be an ADC yourself as well as save your other ADC on the team? Alright, the time has finally arrived. I'm talking about Master Yi. Even though as a champion and as a playstyle I don't really like it that much, and it doesn't help people learn how to jungle properly very well, he has reached this point where he is not too strong but not too weak, and definitely and even seen in higher ranked games quite commonly now, to the point that he has the 4th highest play rate on this patch in Platinum and above. Extremely strong scaling potential. If Yi gets ahead, he can be tower diving you, chasing everyone down and not having any problems closing out the game as long as he focuses objectives. His skill cap, yes, he's easy to use, but there are definitely certain markers where you can tell someone who's a very skilled Master Yi player and someone who's trying him out for the first time, which is the reason for the orange medium skill level. Any champion that can 1v9, take down towers, take down barons, take down dragons, speed is definitely a good choice for solo queue, because in those games when it's uncoordinated, Master Yi will thrive. And now, after having a couple buffs and a few patches this year, Nocturne has returned to the fold. However, he still suffers from the same downside, which is he's a dive champion, and if you don't get ahead, you're simply launching yourself into the enemy team and you'll get blown up. Especially if the team has 3-4 tanks with CC. Your spell shield can block certain things, but if the enemy team knows how to stack CC, then you're pretty much done for. If you are ahead, however, you can probably melt someone in 0.5 of a second. His early ganks are a little bit underrated, but he does farm extremely quickly, so the counter jungling and reaching level 6 potential is certainly there for him. But don't hesitate to rotate down for counter ganks and get yourself a free double kill, similar to the Yi play in that sense. And his tethered E is definitely a way of burning easy flashes, so you can come back at 6 with your ultimate, knowing they have no way to escape your ult. Finally, Jhin may have dropped down a few tiers, but he is still very strong and just underutilized at the moment. He had a few nerfs that came in from his insanely OP preseason. However, his early game ganks, his level 2 possibilities as well with those ganks, and his mid game power spike are still strong. So if you can have a very strong early game and your early game pathing is one of your strong suits and you really want to end games in the mid game, Jhin can definitely still be a good choice and he can do the job for you. Just be sure to secure those Rift Heralds and Barons while you can, and make sure you push the enemy back and keep the enemy jungler away from ganking with your strong 1v1 early game. Next up is Rek'Sai, still strong, still powerful, still unique pathing, still early game and mid game focused, and the usage of tunnels as well as auto cancels and smooth rotations is important in her success, which is why still recommended as a high elo champion. But if you're plat and you're winning with Rek'Sai, keep going, there's nothing stopping you. Same thing for any champion, I suppose, but it's more that the advanced knowledge of how to close games out quickly, as well as using your tunnels and pathing to exert insane amounts of pressure on specifically bot lane and over the wall ganking, is what makes Rek'Sai that more higher and difficult pick. However, the opposite of a difficult pick would be Trundle. He has a lot of early game damage he can get in the face of nearly any champion. He has very strong early ganks with a speed up and pillar, especially if you can pin people against a wall. 1v1 dueling potential. He can steal the stats from a tank, so if the enemy stacks up tanks, great way to peel is by using Trundle's ultimate later in the game. Really no inherent weaknesses other than, of course, a coordinated team can kite back and keep him away from your ADC. And because of a lack of gap closer, usually he's reduced to peel duty later on, as you're not going to be able to sort of flank and dash inside of teamfights. Make sure you utilize his ability to chunk and split push if pressure isn't going your way in fighting. Okay, I was a bit hesitant to put Kai'Sa on here because I'm spamming her a lot. I like to play things that are a little bit different. And yes, she is very strong at the moment. Yes, she is better at ADC, but she is still a very strong jungler and has insane damage early. Level 3 ganks. You don't need to kill them necessarily, although you can. It's about chunking and sending away the enemy laner that gives your laner time to free farm and scale up ahead of them. There's also something about taking a scaling ADC jungler like Kindred and like Kai'Sa, where you can take the damage responsibility on yourself. You need to make sure you have good teamfight positioning, you need to make sure you have good rotations to get yourself fed, and you need to understand when and where you cannot fight. So her learning curve is high, and it takes a bit of time to sort of understand all the matchups all over the game. You want to know your jungle matchup, you want to know the laner matchups, because without CC and with melee damage and positioning on your side, being able to telegraph the enemy's moves and use your ultimate in and out of those situations is crucial to her success. Okay, once again, I don't really play Udyr, but he is definitely right. He's still there at that 53 or so % rune rate, but he is a pressure jungler with similar usages than Yi and Trundle, where you can split push, solo objectives, and exert a certain type of early game pressure. Udyr thrives at getting under the skin of the enemy jungler through his counter jungling and quick 1v1s, hit and runs, and things like that. So if you have a hyperactive playstyle and you just can't sit still and you always need to be doing something, Udyr is a great champion for that. Go take the dragon, go invade his camps, push him off, take the camps, go bot lane, go mid lane, go take your own jungle, rinse, repeat, split push, open the gates as it were. It is good. Alright, Kayn is getting back into the picture a little bit. Although he's been a fan favorite ever since his release, he hasn't always been the strongest and best option. Thanks to buffs that allow him to transfer much earlier in the game, Kayn is seeing some playing from the lowest to the highest ranked brackets, and you can see that in streams as well, people breaking out the Rast much sooner, and that's because Rast just scales better. Rast is a better and safer option than Shadow Assassin. Shadow Assassin, if you know what you're doing in low elos, is good because you can just pick off uncoordinated teams, but the higher you go, the more Rast becomes an effective option, as I've said before. But the strength of Kayn now is that you can transform much earlier in the game, so do look for a bit more early game pressure, try get involved a bit more, and once you get that transformation, you can actually go and have that bigger impact. Finally, the world's most popular jungler, Lee Sin. We won't really speak too much about him. He's there if you know how to play him. He got a few buffs recently which helped his quality of life, give him a bit more damage and Q range. High skill cap, very flashy, very fun, but if you are not that well versed in him and you really are trying to accomplish something like get to plat, get to gold, get to silver, he's not really the champion to do that with, but he's very rewarding if you can maximize his playstyle. Okay, there were a lot of junglers I wanted to talk about in this video, so we're going to finish off with a bit of a bullet round. Vi still suffers from her same problems, it's sort of the Nocturne problem, and J4 is just a better version of her. However, the buffs definitely did help her. Her win rate has gone up slightly, so pick her up, see how you like her, see how she feels, but her inherent problems with her kit are still prevalent. Graves also received a little bit of buffs in the last patch, and that has buffed his win rate slightly. He's more viable to play now, but again, if you want a marksman jungler, Kindred and Kai'Sa are still much more viable options. Volibear is strong, still works, nothing wrong with him at all. If you can maximize your team fighting with his E, Q, and you know what to do within that realm, he is much better late game than as if you're simply just running and engaging, because all it takes is a Lux bind or Morgana bind and Black Shield and you're basically screwed. And the Cinderhawk nerfs and the slight changes to his E did bring him back down to earth a bit. He still has a strong early game and he's a very gank heavy jungler because his farming is quite slow. He's an excellent low elo champion, and I can even see people getting to plat with him, hell even diamond if you're playing him properly. Not quite the meta queen she was a couple patches ago thanks to a few changes and slight nerfs. Shvyana has been tamed, but still a good pick. Still suffers from the same problems. If your team wins, then you can win easily, and if the enemy team wins, then you're gonna have a harder time. Split pushing and soloing, Rift Heralds, farming quickly, all these things she still does very well. Her combating presence is definitely decreased though, so you don't have to run into her and fear for your life automatically now. And then finally we have Olaf, Jarvan, and Zach. All still fine picks, nothing wrong with them. They are just more tame than they used to be. They can all work in solo queue. Zach is getting buffs on the PvE with some AP ratios for some strange reason, so you know, if you have Baron, that's great. Or if you build Leandries, that might be an option. So keep an eye on that. Jarvan, definitely way lower than he used to be, but the level 2 cheese ganks never fail to surprise the enemy, and you do have that lockdown, peel, and engage if you do need it. And Olaf, you can just run at people's faces and be a Viking. People don't like that apparently, and it works quite well in solo queue. But the nerfs to his R did impact the way you would play him top lane and did slow him down a bit when using Predator. Okay, hopefully that gives you an idea of some of these strong junglers. As you can see, our pool is quite large at the moment with a variety of playstyles. If you play a champion that I didn't mention, it doesn't mean they're necessarily bad in the jungle. If you're having success with them, that's great, keep playing. But remember, if you are struggling and you are not ranking up, then you have to decide whether your goal is to rank up or to have fun with the champion you're playing. And either one of those is absolutely fine. I'm sort of a hybrid. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you can pick a jungler from this list if you're struggling to choose who to play. Be sure to like, share, and comment if you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe for more jungle videos coming soon, and as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.